You only get to select one QB in your NFL DFS lineup. We'll go over the key metrics you should consider in selecting your QB, and it's all coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Gary Kurtzman, and we are the Fantasy Football Consultants. We're recording a series of shows to help you choose the right metrics to look at when choosing a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, and a tight end. Now, the links to all these shows are going to be included in the show descriptions. But Eric, this particular show is all about quarterbacks and which metrics to look at. We've taken a look at literally every NFL game over the last 10 seasons and ran a simple correlation of quarterback performance to quarterback pricing on both DraftKings and FanDuel. The bottom line is this: the highest priced quarterbacks don't return their value that you would expect for the price as consistently as quarterbacks in that 30 to 75% range. That's the numbers that I want you all as viewers to commit to from memory. 30 to 75%. There's a sweet spot in there of quarterbacks that return the most value. You don't want the bottom 25, Eric. You don't want the losers.
I think you just insulted Zach Wilson. But let's move on to the specific matrix that we want you to look at.
The first one, Eric, believe it or not, is TD percentage. Why TD percentage? Well, first of all, this is the highest correlated metric to fantasy points, and it's not close. It is literally not close. Look, I don't want to bore anybody with statistics, but the fact of the matter is, if you have two factors that are 40% correlated with each other, meaning 40% of the value of this metric can be determined by the other metric, that's pretty good. I mean, that legitimately is pretty good for modeling. If you're 60%, it's incredible. This is 70% correlated. I'm not going to bore you with the stats anymore. I just use that as an example of, holy crap, you got to look at TD percentage first. It's actually the highest correlated in any position, any metric. Look, here's the deal. 40% of the quarterback's fantasy points are going to be via the touchdown. Right?
Yeah.
So of course it's going to be highly correlated. More important than volume, more important than any other metric.
Gary, can you explain to the viewers the fraction? Because you're talking about TD percentage. So obviously the numerator is TD passes by that quarterback. What do you use as a denominator?
Your denominator is total passes. So you take the number of passes that result in touchdowns versus the number of passes that are just your total number of passes, right? That could be to any position, by the way, not just wide receivers. And all of the metrics that we're talking about, we will show you where to find them. A little teaser, a little spoiler. You got to wait till the end of the show. That's our hook. Eric, what's the second most important metric? That would be completion percentage. It's the number of completed passes divided by the number of pass attempts. Okay, again, this is to any position, wide receiver, tight end, running back, you name it, right? Look, in layman's terms, you don't want the prolific quarterback. You want the good quarterback. You don't want the one necessarily that slings it 60 times. You want the one where when they do sling it, it's accurate, it's on time, and it's a completed pass. That's the way that I think you should be thinking about this. That is more strongly statistically correlated with quarterback performance than any other metric other than TD percentage.
So we've gone over two key metrics. We got two big ones still to come. But before we do that, if you liked the video so far, please do us a favor, smash that like button. And if you haven't yet, hit the red subscriber button. Gary, this next metric is what I call, for us who are a little bit lazier, you can rely on Pro Football Focus's passing grade. What they do is they analyze, Gary, every play that a quarterback has from -2 to +2. Now, a lot of plays, they're handing off to a running back, so they're probably just going to get a 0. But when they do something really good, higher than expected, they're going to get a 1 or a 2. If they do something really bad, a -2 or a -1. And they total that for the entire game. And here's what's noteworthy about this. That's even better than the statistics, because, Gary, sometimes stats lie. With a quarterback throws a pass directly to the opponent. Should be an interception, but they drop it. No interceptions according to the stats, but Pro Football Focus will count that as a negative pass play. Same thing if the pass is caught by a wide receiver because they make a spectacular play, then the quarterback will not get as high a grade if the pass was right on target.
Yeah, and that's what I love about that statistic, by the way, the Pro Football Focus, QB metric. And another one is this: air yards. Air yards. If you aren't familiar with the term, it goes something like this: air yards is how long did each pass, how long did it travel in the air before it hits the receiver's fingertips? Okay, it's really that simple, right? So if I throw a 75-yard touchdown pass to Eric, but that was me throwing a 10-yard pass and him doing all the rest of the work, a 65 yak, if you will, then the air yards is 10. The air yards is not 75. Here's why air yards are important. Look, I still haven't gotten to volume yet, but this is the metric that incorporates volume, okay? The majority of the yards, this is for basically every quarterback, every game. The majority of the yards the passing yards that are gained by a team is through the air. Less than half of the yards that are gained yards after the catch. The majority of the yards are gained by passing. So if you were to add up all the air yards, okay, that was for one quarterback, A, you'd get some volume. There's some inherent volume there, but B, it is actually more strongly correlated than if you just take total yards. Because as it turns out, yards after the catch is so volatile. Eric, God bless him, in that example, he went 65 yards to the touchdown after the catch, right? It's totally random. He could just
can't rely on that.
But you can't rely on it. He could just use them intact or whatever. It takes out the volatility, makes the statistic more correlative and more reliable. Air yards.
Well, here's the simple truth, folks. The more your team scores, more likely your quarterbacks will score. You want to make sure your quarterback has at least an implied total of 23, and that's going to be conducive to really establishing a floor for cash games and then a higher upside even for GPP.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like an obvious point, but it's an incredibly important one. The more the team scores, the better your quarterback is going to do. I don't care what kind of volume. I don't care if it's a running or team or whatever, right? It's all about opportunities, Eric.
Yeah. And the other thing that you're looking for is you would like to have your quarterback continue to pass, right? So ideally there's a high over under, which means that there's hopefully a smaller spread. So it's a shootout. That's what you're hunting for in these particular games. So you're looking for a high implied total and a high over and under. And I want to talk a little bit, Gary, about this concept of rushing. So quarterbacks, I always like quarterbacks who give me a little upside because they run the ball. Mm-hmm. Now, the reality is usually those rushing quarterbacks, their salary reflects that and it's higher. So you obviously have to consider the salary. But I want to talk a little bit about predictions. There are some quarterbacks, Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, who they just don't run the ball. And it's very predictive. And it's not like they sometimes don't run the ball. They basically never run the ball. And more than any other stat in fantasy football, you can predict some rushing stats of some quarterbacks. And you teased it earlier. Where are you going to find all these? We are so happy to partner as an affiliate with DFS Hub. Gary, I love how they have everything all in one place. So you can not only access the information, but you can sort, you can manipulate. They have over 80 different metrics that you can potentially look at. In fact, let's do a quick demonstration of their site. All right, we're on the DFS Hub site, and let's look at some of the key metrics that DFS Hub has as it relates to quarterbacks. So it has all the metrics that we've talked about on this particular show. So we've got the over-under. They call it team points, but it's basically the implied team total. And 3 categories here: depth of target passing, which is air yards, completion percentage, and the overall grade as a passer for that quarterback. Those are all done by PFF, which is Pro Football Focus. I talked to DFS Hub, and all those numbers will get populated. If you look up here underneath the player, I put in their TD percentage in the last 4 games. So they have that category as well. So there's a couple other metrics I thought that was kind of fun to show you for a quarterback. So they do a projection of fantasy points. It's an outside organization that does it, but they're projecting the fantasy points. So you can choose to, sort by that if you're interested in just in their particular projections. I don't ever recommend to blindly take anybody's projections, but it's a nice cross-reference when you're looking at, you did your own data and your own analysis, looking at the columns that you put together and you just want to cross-reference. That's great. I also really like this next one, points for over salary, which is the projected fantasy points divided by the salary. That's kind of a value metrics. So that's really good. And you might just say, hey, I really want to look at the implied total. So what I'm going to do is click on this and show me all the implied total. Now, one of the problems with that is it's going to show you all of the quarterbacks that is in this one Kansas City game. So how do we solve that? It's pretty simple. You go to the depth and just say, look, inner one, just show me the guys who's on number 1 on the depth charts. So that's all the guys that you will recognize. And now you can filter by team points. You can filter by over and under, whatever you'd like to do. If you're interested in DFS Hub, please do us a favor and use our FFC affiliate link. It helps support the show. We'll include that link at the bottom of your screen as well. We will include it in the description of this video. And as a special treat to following this long in the video, before we return to the studio with Gary Kurtzman, I thought I would show an old video over 20 years ago with me and Gary talking about what else? Quarterbacks in the NFL.
As well, Warren Moon has one of the highest completion percentages in the NFL. The man is mobile, he is accurate, it is amazing what Warren Moon can do. So much, in fact, that of the top 8 receivers as far as passes caught in the NFL, 4 of them belong to the Houston Oilers.
He's amazing. And I think the telling statistic for a quarterback for me is touchdown. Can you march your team down, and then when it counts, put the ball in the end zone? No one does that better than Warren Moon, at least this year.
So in addition to the DFS Hub introduction that we just gave you, we want to remind you to go ahead and check out our 9-episode DFS Masters class that is available on our YouTube channel for a deep dive into all the tips and tricks and metrics and statistics that you need to pick your winning NFL DFS lineups.
I want to thank everyone for joining us. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.